If you look at the map of the mid-18th century Europe, you will find that they were no nation states as we know them today. We know today as Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons, whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies, within the territories of which lived a diverse peoples. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often they were spoken different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, and another half spoke a variety of dialects, and a Galicia people spoke Polish. There were many differences. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. The only tie bonding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor.
Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant class on the continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life that cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for purposes of diplomacy and in high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. To the west, the bulk of the land was farmed by tenants and small owners, while in Western and Central Europe the pattern of landholding was characterized by vast estates which were cultivated by serfs. In Western and parts of Central Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and the emergence of commercial classes whose existence was based on production for the market. It was among the educated, liberal middle classes that ideas of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. The term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, meaning free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. Liberalism had stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. During the 19th century, this was a strong demand for the emerging middle classes. Let us take the example of German-speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century.
Napoleon's administrative measures had created out of countless small principalities a confederation of 39 states. Each of these possessed its own currency and weights and measures. As each region had its own system of weights and measures, this involved time-consuming calculations. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes, who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory, allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. In 1834, a customs union, or Zollverein, was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. This union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing the economical interest to national unification. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at the time. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed that the established traditional institutions of state and society, like the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property and the family, should be preserved. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, representatives of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Australian Chancellor Duke Metternich. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna in 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. and France lost its territories that it had annexed under Napoleon. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in the future. The German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. The main objective was to restore the monarchies overthrown by Napoleon and create a conservative order in Europe. During the years following 1815, the fear of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation-states as a necessary part for the struggle for freedom. One such individual was an Italian revolutionary, Giuseppe Mazzini. Born in Genoa in 1807, he became a member of the secret society of Carbonari. He subsequently founded two more underground societies. First, Young Italy in Marseilles, and then Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded men from Poland, France, Italy, and the German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be the natural units of mankind. So Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be the basis of Italian liberty. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order.